afternoon. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. All right, what are we going to go over? Last night I heard from one person, my God, I hope you're not going to give us another assignment. Another one said, you talked so fast last year, I need KTL and LOC. And we're just going to keep the basics today. I mean, I want to talk about things that everybody's familiar with. In other words, how Route 1, Route 2, SOP, HC, AD go together with shady space placing. We're going to talk, and there's just no need to worry. Actually, I am, and I'm going to talk slow. And no new big assignment today. The problem with giving this behind-the-scenes briefing is you either have to get so behind the scenes that I'm going to hit you with things that are just ridiculous, or you're already in the loop. You're in the loop on a lot. So what I wanted to do is I do want to give you a little bit of behind the scenes, what's coming up, because we're talking about these central orgs. I want to show you a project that I'm obsessed with and what it really has to do with the central orgs, which is everything you see here. Looks somewhat familiar to last year, but we're going to be going through it again. You're going to see why it really is the foundation on which everything rolls, because we're in a bit of a plan right now. It's probably the most massive evolution in Scientology's history in terms of the materials, but it's to get a complete done, so we're at a place we have never been in our history. And then everything just flows out from there. It's like you're not thinking about, well, we're not doing things like, hey, guess what? Here's the Magic to SEM formula, and here's all the lectures on that. But there's actually a lot more that ties into it in terms of lost tech and bringing things back in terms of this public phase. Some people came up to me during the voyage and said, I surveyed DC and I found out what they were doing in this year on their successful action. They gave it to me, and I go, wow, that's interesting. 2 of the things are squirrel, 3 are totally standard, but they don't even seem to know why they're so standard or what other data exists for that. So we have a lot of these things that are on the, people know something was working, but then it dropped out, and you go, why? Missing tech. So it's actually like revitalizing, bringing out all this lost tech and to everybody on Earth. So whereas last year I spoke about a lot of things would be coming out then, I'm going to give you some briefing as to what happened since then, why maybe some of those things didn't come out, and why it's to everyone's benefit, okay? Throw that aside, I am going to start with one project we've been working on for 3 years I thought you'd be interested in, okay? And this one has to do with source. It's just an interesting project that we've been working on, and I think you'll find fascinating. Okay. I do. It has been about 3 years, and hopefully it's going to be wrapped up at March 13th. Now, needless to say, everything in our orgs flows from LRH. So we had this project that we wanted to do to have a presence of LRH. Now, we have the LRH exhibits in the orgs that are going in. We have lifetime exhibitions at the Flag Land Base. We're going to have an event hall, which is going to have massive quantities of artifacts and all manner of things on his life. But nevertheless, we wanted to do something for the permanency and future of Scientology in terms of historical events. Now, you see this around the world, major historical figures, they leave monuments to them. Well, we actually do have our own. And there are certain places on this planet that stand as signposts on LRH's research trail. So when you go through those places, you're effectively walking through time and in his footsteps. Good example, anybody who's been at St. Hill, you go through St. Hill Manor, there it is. That's St. Hill, he's ED, and you know about the clearing course, the beginning OT levels, the briefing course, it gives you a reality. Well, we want to do that with every effective signpost along the research trail from 1950 forward. So, to give you an example now, we initiated a project, and it's actually being done through the Church of Spiritual Technology. And so I know it's something you don't hear that much about because they're not really a frontline Scientology church, but they are the church who LRH basically bequested his entire estate. And that's where all the preservation of the technology takes place and so forth. They have been in a project for about 3 years now on this subject to find these places. And this, I'm talking about literally locations he was, houses he was, offices he was, tracking them down and getting these places and bringing them back to everything that was there when he was there so that Scientologists can travel the globe, stop by and see. So really the pit stops of the research trail to full OT. So I'm going to give you an example of some of these, okay? They include the cabin where he wrote Excalibur, which I think some of you may have heard about. They include Phoenix, Arizona, where he did all of his exteriorization research and ultimately announced Scientology. They include in Washington, D.C., his original office there. They include the office in Fitzroy Street in London. They include Johannesburg, where he worked and created all of the Div 6 services. And they include, of course, his house where he did the levels up through OT. Now let me show them to you, okay? Okay, beginning, Port Orchard Cabin, okay? Now, this is where LRH lived on the western shore of Puget Sound in Port Orchard, Washington in 1930s, and he actually built this cabin in 1937. And when we tracked it down, it had seen 50 years of neglect. Its roof was caved in. The wood was rotting with heavy water damage from years of rain. Despite the damage, many of the original items of furniture were there ready for salvage, believe it or not. So the cabin today, here it is, 1 year later, brought back to its original condition, both inside and outside. Now, painstaking care was taken to restore the cabin to exactly how LRH had built it. LRH wrote notes describing the cabin in detail, and these were used as a map for the restoration. We even interviewed family members who gave us details to bring it back to exactly how LRH had it. For instance, the naughty red cedar throughout is the original wood, fully reconditioned. The bed, even on the LRH's bed, he described it as 9 feet long, 4 feet off the deck, columned, a little house in itself, and there it is, and you can see it. Stoves, all furnishings restored, matched to the originals. The bookcases reconstructed through meticulous detail to match exactly their original construction, and, by the way, the books that were there when he was writing. LRH used it as a writing studio. His artifacts at the time were returned, such as the typewriter, material he published during those prolific years of pulp fiction, notes from his books on Excalibur, which were written in this very cabin. They will be located there, and all of it included exactly as it was in 1940 when LRH left Puget Sound on the 1940 Alaska expedition, which you just heard about. So there you have it, the fully restored Port Orchard cabin. And there you go. And that will probably be at the Flagline base and located there as part of the entire event hall that will be taking place. Now we move to Phoenix, Arizona, okay? And LRH lived in Phoenix from 1952 through 1954, and his Camelback house was named for the mountain that stands behind it, which you can see there, and it was shaped like the hump of a camel. And while it was his home, it was also a busy site with Scientologists coming to ask questions, just talk to LRH. Here you have where LRH gave his lectures, formed the Hubbard Association of Scientologists International. And in this shot coming up, you can see LRH actually delivering what you know as the Route to Infinity Technique 80 lectures. For those of you who have heard them, you'll have noted the little sound in the background. That's the gravel he's standing on when he's walking there. Okay, this is also where a bust was made by a student, actually, and only 3 remain, and this one here you can see was fully restored, and it's one of the only 3 in existence. Then there's the piano you saw in that one shot that is well known, and that piano was found. It's made by a manufacturer that's been out of business for 40 years, but we found it, and through craftsmanship restored it to its original condition. And this is also where LRH wrote The Creation of Human Ability in Phoenix. Here too is where he used the Matheson meter to research the whole track, and you see the results in the history of man. He designed the Scientology cross in Phoenix, Arizona. That's another example of what occurred in that area. And today you can see the house, which has been restored to its original condition when LRH lived there. And here you can see the interior restoration in progress. And we've located many of the originals, such as the stove even, the exact measurements of the kitchen cabinets. And you can see here in these renderings what it will look like when it is completed. So it was restored to exactly like it was when LRH was there with the displays around it. There's an information center that will be at the beginning containing stories and artifacts from LRH's development of Scientology in Phoenix. The rooms in the living room you can see will be restored to originals, such as where LRH's office was. So it'll be exactly how it was when LRH was there. So that's Camelback House in Phoenix, Arizona. Of course, you saw him sitting there on a chaise lounge outside in the front. That's, of course, the story that comes from be 3 feet back of your head. And there you go. That's what's happening there. Okay, moving on to Founding Church in Washington, D.C. And this 1810 and 1812 19th Street in Washington, D.C. And that was the home of the founding church, and incidentally, just a few minutes walk from the current org location. Now, at this place, Elrich became executive director in 1955 and worked at FCDC through 1959 when he moved to St. Hill. He formed HCO there, developed the 6-department org board, delivered the first Scientology wedding ceremony, developed TRs, upper and dock TRs 7 and 8 were issued, and the first check sheet. Now, this is the building today, you can see in this next shot, and it too will be restored fully, room by room, as they were at the time. Here is reception, and that is exactly what the reception looked like at the time, not counting the displays that are there. And this is LRH's office, and it will be restored exactly to his specifications as he described the office in detail, laying out exactly how he wanted it to facilitate his production, and we have the photographs. And the original HCO will be there just as it was. The technical training room will be set up exactly as it was when he was there, including the exact reel-to-reel tape machines used to reproduce the lectures for the students, and also the chapel that LRH gave the Academy Lecture Series, also known to you today as the Conquest of Chaos. So there you have the original FCDC. And that location will serve as a primary location for bringing local opinion leaders, people from Congress, people in government there to be at the site where LRH was, and then we send them 3 feet back of their head. Moving on to London. Here's LRH in London, England, and this is the org at 35 and 37 Fitzroy Street. LRH actually commuted between FCDC and Fitzroy between 1955 and 1959. And here's where he wrote the very first HCO bulletin on 22 July 1956. And among the technical advances at that location were TRs 1 through 4. It's also right here, LRH delivering the 5th London ACC, which he used the case histories in the book, Have You Lived Before This Life? He also wrote the Fundamentals of Thought there. And here you can see the Fitzroy Street building today. And its restorations will also include reception with information on the building and LRH's work here. And it will also have LRH's office fully restored in all aspects. The organizing chart, it was as called then, exactly where it was hung at the time, and staff offices such as these. Wow. So there you have the Fitzroy Street building, the original London org. Now, moving to the southern hemisphere, there is Johannesburg, and you've now heard a lot about Johannesburg org. Well, LRH lived in Johannesburg for about a year while holding the hat of ED of Johannesburg org. And these are the shots LRH took showing his house from the time period. Some of you might recall this from the source briefing giving it March 13th, 2 years ago. And among the many breakthroughs made by LRH in Johannesburg included the personnel efficiency course, the entire testing line. He developed the anatomy of the human mind course. And it's here he posed for Cohort Steinberg, who made the bust you see displayed in all orgs today. Well, since then, the house has been under extensive restoration for several months. And later owners had done a real number, and we're bringing it back to exactly how it was. For instance, they filled in the entire pool. So we had it excavated, and it's completely restored it down to the last detail, including the fountain and the original tiles. On the interior renovations, many of the details of the house had been plastered over, so we've had a lot of intensive work going on to carefully uncover the wood trim, hand-placed stone walls, and more. It's all revealed and restored as it was when he was there. LRH's butler, Johans, who again you might have seen in the March 13th event, he came in and he's helping giving descriptions and particulars so we can make sure it was totally accurate to the last detail. And you can see the house that's now been restored, ready for final furnishing. And here is the pool, fully restored, and the waterfall. That's it done. And is the fully restored exterior of the house today. That too is a done. And as for what it will look like when you enter, you're going to see an entire information center with displays showing LRH's work in Johannesburg. Each room will be restored to original. His office where he drew the African Bill of Rights, and so much more history in the development of Scientology in Africa and for the world. So that's his house in Johannesburg. Your assignment, of course, is to tour through all of these before the March 13th event. So that's one part of your assignment. Just keep a note of, yeah, right, there you go. Craig's got it down. And finally, The last one I wanted to show you, although not the last of all of them, is in Creston, California. And of course, that is where LRH did all of his upper level research. Wrote up OT8 that you have today, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and you've sometimes seen some of these shots in earlier years. I don't think we've shown it in many years. So here you can see it. It's his home near San Luis Obispo in California. And it was actually a horse ranch. And LRH had many paint horses on that ranch, and he lived there for about 3 years. And it's, as I just said, it's where he completed New OT8 and all beyond that. It's also where he recorded Ron's Journal 38 and Ron's Journal 39. And it is a ranch house, and it has been maintained since by personal staff at the Church of Spiritual Technology. And of course, LRH designed the entire property, specifying the motif, actually going around, seeing to the construction of fences and you name it. This is not just a matter of pulling out notes. That's his property. Here you can see the organ where LRH used to write the music for Road to Freedom album. It's there where he recorded Thank You for Listening that you hear in that album. Bedroom with auditing table right at the end of the bed, first session of the day. Incidentally, at least 6 sessions a day, every single day. And in the garage are even the cars that he used to drive around the property for daily photo shoots. There you go. Or into town. They're both there on the site. And here you can see just some of the 160 acres. And again, LRH personally was there right down to the picket fences and how they were lined up on the hills. So there you can see it, and that will soon be open for tours. And that is where LRH did his final research. There you go. Moving on to something slightly more mundane, but a very intensive project we've been working on. Ties into dissemination and everything I thought you'd find interesting in terms of what we do to bring source to the world. Now, of course, you see a lot here. And when I talk about bringing source to the world, I am talking about his materials. But on that count, beyond the books and lectures, there is that matter of reality. And in that regard, nothing does it like films. And there's a reality to be had in LRH. You see them, you get that added reality. And for those not fortunate to talk to him, see him, well, when the films are there, you get that reality. Now, we've had many films, but as you've seen, some of the cameramen in the earlier years, they've long since been shot from guns. And they're a very important point. It's a very important point because these films are a primary line of dissemination. Take the introduction to Scientology, the interview, film with LRH, the classification and gradation film, other films that we have on technical courses, such as the ones in the briefing course, on the clearing course, and the Clearing Congress in Washington, D.C. So what we've been doing actually has been engaged in a massive restoration project, and really only now after all these years is it possible to do it with all the digital advances and so forth. Well, if you could see gold, one thing you'd see is a lot of computers and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So this is a project, again, that's been going on for a few years, and it should all come to fruition, and then it's a release to the entire plan to make this all available there. Now, to give you an example, the sort of mundane things we deal with, you're dealing with film, they fade, you've seen that, they shrink. The originals now I'm talking about, they deform with age. The coating that's on the film over time starts deteriorating. So these are the reasons you see dirt, scratches, etc. And let's not forget that the original people who had these films didn't really take the care that we do today. So first thing we do in terms of these films, we actually have had them archived for years in perfect storage. There's an entire building that is just everything set up for perfect maintenance of everything LRH. And I'm not just talking about the films of him, but even his films that he took, everything at the exact humidity, temperature, etc. And that has been that way for some time. So they haven't deteriorated since we did that project over a decade ago. So now we've had a chance to pull them out and restore them. Now, what we have been doing, and you're going to be able to see this real soon, is going through frame by frame and handling every single frame of every one of these films with LRH on it. And we are even capable of handling things that you might see like jerky camera, he forgot to focus the camera, sometimes you can handle that. And the result is you finally see a beautiful film. And I wanted to give you some examples of this because what we do, we handle that part, final master is scanned into the computer, and then actually we've even had our own people develop technology to do these frame by frame because outhouse. They don't spend the time on it. Second of all, you're talking millions upon millions of dollars. To give you an example of just what it takes to get it into the computer, okay, 237 hours at the rate it scans into the computer just to do the introduction to Scientology, okay? 2 weeks, nonstop, 24/7. There's a lot of computing power being used to store these and then restore them is my point. Each frame cleaned, about 300 hours for one film, okay? That's just for cleaning, removing motion, jitters, etc. About another 200 hours per film. And here, I have a figure here. The amount of computer files used to restore the introduction to Scientology, classification and gradation, and clearing Congress films is equivalent to 3.1 billion pages of text stored in a computer. That gives you an idea. There you go. You always have to give these orders of magnitude. Those, you have no comparison. So, let me show you them, and I'm going to show you the films that are being done. First one's Introduction to Scientology. It's a 54-minute long LRH interview done in April 1966 in Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. And here you can see the earlier released, colorized version of the film, and that's been available on videotape. Now you can see how it looks now after our restoration. Wow. Each frame hand-painted with over 10 million different shades of color. And it actually looks more like LRH did in the interview. In fact, we have the original clothes, material, etc., so we could match it exactly to what was there in the real universe. There we go. That probably gives you the best example of it. Excellent. Thank you. And we actually, as you can imagine, when it comes out in DVD, it'll be translated into every language, and there you can see some of them. When I say every, it's going to start with 50 languages that will be available on. And there will be a DVD. And in our orgs, and as I'll get to in a moment, missions, soon to be, it's on high definition projection, which is actually what you're looking at there. And that also is a special technology that we've actually developed for our projection, which you now see in the orgs. It's orders of magnitude greater clarity than a DVD, but it will be available on DVD and then in orgs and missions on the high definition, and you get the idea there, okay? Okay, then there's the classification and gradation film, and that, of course, is a lecture to SHSBC students shot at St. Hill, September 9, 1965. It's 28 minutes long, and it's where he releases the grade chart. By the way, that's right after the 7th Division Org Board, and also at the exact same time period of power processing. So that tells you how all that technology ties together. Actually, it was at a time he was doing research on films when he was first talking about using the AV dissemination medium at that time. I'll give you a quote of what he said, actually, right before the start of this filmed lecture. What you don't hear on the lecture, but we have the recording tape. Here's what he says. We'll be able to get out training films. We'll be able to get out everything under the sun, moon, and stars. We can get you out introductory lectures. We can get you out picture stories of one kind or another. We can get you out demonstrations of technology, of auditing, of meters, and all that sort of thing. Well, of course, that's the program we've been continuing on for years, but that's what he says right at the beginning of that before the film goes on. Actually, there's another story. He started talking. The guy forgot to turn on the camera. It's about 10 minutes of the lecture, and he starts up, and he does it again. That's the film you see. Okay, more to the point, though. Now we're going to dim the lights. Here, I'm going to show you what the condition of the original film looked like, and I want you to note the dirt and the variation of the exposure, meaning it gets brighter, darker. That's the original. And afterwards, here you can see the restored film, fully cleaned, evenly exposed. Blacks are black, and the whites are white, and the gray in between. And again, on the left, you can see the old film, and the right is the newly restored film. Now, I mentioned we can even work on focus on some areas. That's not totally possible. You can't totally, you'd have to synthesize it completely, and not with LRH there. I mean, you'd have to actually alter that, but we can handle it in a lot of areas to handle the cameraman's goofs. And this shows you the out of focus by that original cameraman. Note the bottom of the grade chart. Those are the minus awareness characteristics, and you know where he was. Well, that focus is now handled by locating that one frame in focus and reproducing it, and for the first time, you can actually read the chart. Here we go. Now we get that wrecked and And again, this shows you the out of focus on the left and the upgraded film on the right. Wow. There you go. Okay, and I think that says it all. All right. So there you go. There's classification and gradation. Okay. Okay, then there's the Clearing Congress lectures, which were delivered in Washington, D.C. in July 1958. And actually, they're the only lectures of LRH filmed in color. And here you go. Here's another example. This is going to show you the point. This first one shows, of course, the poor film conditions, scratches, dirt, film instability, so forth. And that's what you currently see on the videotapes. And afterwards, there you go. Frame by frame is how that occurs, and here you can see the difference on the split screen. And let me give you another example. Here's one. If you look on the right, you're going to see a flash, and the cameraman overexposed the edge of the film, probably opening the camera while the film was still in it. No, really, that's what that would have occurred. See that there? He would have opened it up without having the film in a dark bag. There you go. Nothing else to see because that's how it is. And then again on the split screen. I like the right-hand side better. And then, of course, there are the LRH filmed lectures at St. Hill that are on the briefing course and on the clearing course. It's 1964, 65, 66, and they're all being restored. I'm just not showing them here. Actually, they're completing. So with this new system, and we're trying to get all of this wrapped up for all of the translations, so this is available, A, to you, and B, in all orgs and missions in terms of things like classification and gradation with the system that plays for the high definition projection. And there you go on what is happening to bring you that. And I think the real reason that we're just, well, why I'm obsessed with it. Because, you know, I know people want to see LRH, and here's what we have as the record there, and it's going to be around forever. And you hand that out, or people see that, and they get to see him. And that's why it's so important. So anyway, each of those films I told you, the public ones will be in 50 languages, and that is Introduction to Scientology, Classification and Gradation, the Clearing Congress, and yes, also the Clearing Course films will be available in 50 languages. And that is rolling right along to completion. Say the next 3-4 months, all of that will be completed, okay? Okay, now let's move on to why this is called the Golden Age of Knowledge. I spoke to you about these materials last year, but I wanted to cover it in a little bit more detail because if there is, as I say, if there is a project that I'm really obsessed about, it's this one. Orgs do 3 things. They process, they train, and they're a center for knowledge. Those are the 3 things an org does. But as it has been for the longest time, we know that they come in, you get them, and then either do auditing or training. But that knowledge part isn't fully gotten. I mean, people might go down to Qual and study, they might go here and study, and it has been a real barrier. And I mentioned it last year in terms of what we were doing to make all of these materials available, and I really am talking about all of them. The plan right now isn't to just release bit and piece and tell you what they are. The actual plan is to tidal wave it out until it's all out, okay? And the reason is because we're now 2004. Okay, that's 54 years after Dianetics. Time for all of it to be there because actually it's a route just like the grade chart. And it's no different than not having many of the missing grades on the grade chart, and you can just skip from one grade, go 2 up because the other one's not available. But in terms of the orgs, it really does tie into what services get delivered, how rapidly people get trained, what material is there. And what we're really doing is handling, you know, I mentioned this last year, we're handling the fact of It can seem an overwhelm and confusion. You can pick something up and think you don't get it and have it misunderstood. Just by clarifying what they are, you actually handle the real barrier. It wasn't really skipped gradients, missed, or like a fixed idea or false data pounded in. The other night you saw me release the London Congress on Dissemination and Help and the first ACC. There are several of those that are out right now in that order, and nobody knows it. And there's an exact relationship with this technology, but it's like the Matrix right now. Well, we're going to unmatrix all of that. Now, one thing is I mentioned these books last year, and what happened on that, you're going to see the depth and the intensity and the amount and volume of work to make sure that these things are finally exactly what LRH did. Because don't forget, this now stands as the source to be translated, not just 15 languages, 50 or whatever number of languages there are on Earth. It's time that this project's done so that it's never, ever, ever altered or incomplete or whatever from here on out. More on that in a moment. I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about on one. Let me show you one thing we're going to do here that's going to be part of this whole golden age of knowledge in terms of what clarity we will have on these materials. See, I thought I would, you got a mic? Yeah, good. I thought I would overwhelm you today and give you the whole briefing and everything, but I'm going to give you that briefing afterwards, and I'm going to show you how we're not going to overwhelm everybody. Seriously. This here, you saw a sample of that materials guide chart last year, some refinements, any other data that's available, but what it does reflect is a chronological path of every single lecture, book in sequence, then it goes down to the next level, each one categorized. Where tapes aren't available, for instance, some are on little plastic discs, where the transcriptions are in the R&D volume, that's listed. So you could say on one chart there, that tells you everything there is about materials in terms of books, lectures, HCOBs, where they fit. You just get the entire lineup. A study of it alone, which we will be making available to everybody. I mean, it will be available in a little version so everybody can get it. It's all on this chart. For those who weren't here last year, just looking at the categories, it will explain things. In other words, people wonder where things are, books and so forth that I'm going to get to. Well, it becomes abundantly clear when you see exactly what is being studied. Take, for instance, the essentials, where they are. It's right there. You know where you are in the time track. You would see that this entire era here is the development from Dianetics to Scientology and how it came to be and why the Phoenix Lectures are so important as a milestone step. And again, I'm going to go over that in a minute. With all of that out, believe it or not, read it, you walk up, there actually does become several direct training routes or material routes. Now, I said knowledge is part of this lineup. There is a datum that you're just doing a service in an org. This is a false datum. You can tear through policy, you can tear through HCOBs. That is not the lineup of Scientology. The lineup of Scientology is when you're not on service, you're at home, you're getting all your things filled in, so when you show up for the academy, you're ready. Okay, well, that's why we've been working so hard to provide this, so people can have each milestone step. Now, how we ended up working that out, because it was several years, is getting out each lecture. And believe it or not, the guy who was putting a little header on the tape back in 1952 or 1958 wasn't saying this is where this gets done. So we had some that were sort of dovetailed like this. Okay, a good example is Secrets of the Masked Universe. That's tied in with other tapes that are Perception of Truth. They're actually one lineup, and they're the same thing, and they go with the book Scientology 880. But it isn't on the tape, so it's required listening to every single lecture. And then you get the matrix undone, and it has such clarity it isn't funny. But here's what happens now in the first phase of this, and this will be Auditor's Day. This will be available in every single org bookstore. Now, you're only seeing the chart. Concentrate on this. Because now, see, you're already wondering, how am I going to learn all of this? It's a simplicity, and it goes as follows. You can walk up to the chart and stand there and read it. All right, now let's get the camera here. This is our little org system, and ultimately it will cover every single lecture and book. And there we go. You touch this screen. It lists out each type of lecture series, classics, congresses, foundations, I'll get to that in a minute, essentials, ACCs, premieres, new releases. I'll give you an example. Classics. They all show up. You can see every single one. Now we'll go back. I'm interested in the story of Dianetics and Scientology. Oh, there's the synopsis of it. And then headphones. But I have it hooked up to speakers and play it, and you get the excerpt of that exact lecture.
I studied at the Oak Knoll Naval Hospital Library. And I found out by the simple expedient to take...
And you can see it has each lecture series already lined up against what its exact category is. Now, right now, some people listen to lectures are listening to a Congress, an ACC. They don't even know the difference. Not their fault. This is the problem. They are entirely different publics, so to speak. If you know them, go ahead. Everybody can listen to them. But there is an exact relationship of them to a Congress. And as I say, just by that clarification, there's ACCs, but there's Congresses. You get an example, for instance, the new one we just released, and they're all in chronological order, so you know which sequence they're in. Okay, and there we go. That's the new one, right? And you'll see exactly what you just saw at the event.
You know the answers to life, and the rightnesses of life are apparent.
There you go. Now, they're actually set up around the ship, and later on today and for the rest of the voyage, you'll be able to go around and play with it all you want. And that's why we hooked it up to speakers. And we have a lot of the excerpt videos there for lectures that haven't even been released yet. But ultimately, it will include every single one. A guy can walk up, and he's got all of that data right there, combined with the chart. No more getting lost, okay? All right, so that's that. Now I want to give you an example, and I'm going to take you through this sequence, but I want to give you an example of what we do to make these books, give you an example of what happened last year. Because start going through them. You know, when you start looking at these things, and it's all resting on your shoulder, you're going to make sure they're right, huh? I picked this up and I went, well, this is a funny one because Creation of Human Ability, I know that there's a lot of people who love that book because they can't understand it. One day they will. It's true. Oh, yeah, that one's deep. You know, that's deep, okay? And there's a couple others like that, and there's some examples I'll give on some of the other books when they're out, but you can see, okay, now when you're reading it, you go, wait a second, okay, no, I clear up all MUs. This has got to be perfectly clear for people. On some of these, we ended up sending out missions to the location where LRH was doing the manuscript. There's been a lot of digging last year, and the primary one I wanted to tell you about was Creation of Human Ability. Because I'll give you an example. I'll give you one datum there, probably bet you didn't know. Phoenix Lectures, they're delivered about this book. Okay? Did you all know that? No. I know, we didn't tell you. Okay, now I did. Okay. But here's a good example. Let me show you what happened here, because there were several, quote, versions of the manuscript. You probably go, what's the big deal? Well, I'm going to show you what the big deal is, and you're going to see how this goes down and how we find it down to just the fact that it's exactly what he wrote. First thing I want to show you here now is the original manuscript, handwritten. There you go, handwritten. That was a handbook for Scientologists, okay? He originally wrote that up to the process R229. And for those of you familiar with the book, that goes much longer than that. And here you can see all these handwritten pages, okay? All right, then he typed additions to the manuscript, which you can see there. Okay, all of that, the handwritten and the typed, went to a typesetter. Now, we didn't have Sea Org then, so it was a typesetter at some printing house. Well, as you can imagine, they might have hit an MU or two. So, go to the next one. There is a galley. Now, if you don't know what that is, we get back a typed thing from the printer, and he gets it back, okay, and he writes corrections on it. Next page. There's another example, another one. There you go, that's a good example. That is exactly what he gets back from the typesetter. That is what has been used for the book since that time, 1954. And they verified against the typewritten and the handwritten. You go back to the original manuscript. the handwritten, and now proofread it like they should have done then, this whole paragraph's missing. And their MUs on the sequences. That's what I mean about going and finding each different one of them. Okay, then there's all his handwritten corrections. Couple alterises there. Nothing that would stop your bridge progress, but alterises. So you have about 3 or 4 levels of MU phenomena, misduplication, and never having had all of these. And we've really had missions around. I said, we have got to find everything. I mean, some people, you go around 880. That was a project that went on for about 3 months to make sure we had everything that took place there, because I happen to know 1952, that was the period when the Dianetics Foundation was saying, hey, back off with your whole track research. We run the business, you just do your stuff. You'd be surprised, we have the historical notes. You hear these stories from LRH, was he underplaying it? As he underplayed it when he spoke to people about it, you cannot believe what these people were like at that time period. It was literally, this may not make good business sense. You just write, we run it, get that straight, you're okay. Of course, he wrote back and said, good, I got a good idea. You know what, every time you do it, you're gonna pay me $150,000. And the other thing is, separate out me from Dianetics and Scientology. It's like taking the sugar off cornflakes, and that was it, just wiped them out in about 2 days. Nevertheless, they'd been a little busy there, so we make sure we don't get any of their changes, corrections. Even an example, the original 880, there was a guy around named Althea Hart. He wrote about 20 pages that he put at the back of that book when it was originally published. Not in the book you see, they were in the original book, to give you an idea of how people are just monkeying around, okay? So that's why we're very serious to make sure we have it exactly right and don't take anything for granted, because you don't know those people. We want it dead straight, okay? And this is. All right, now. Okay, it's a very important book, which I'm going to get to in a moment. You're going to, I'm going to be talking about this book more than any other book, because you're going to see that this is the fulcrum. You know, it's the fulcrum that everything rests on. It's lower end of the bridge, upper end of the bridge. This is the baby, creation of immutability. And I'm going to show you now, and this is one that has nothing to do with just misduplication of words. I'm going to show you why, if you say you totally got it, it's just, you might have some dubbing. Okay? Okay. All right, now let's put the first thing up on the screen. I'm going to show you how this book goes. Here you go. Here's the contents of the book as it currently is, okay? Auditor's Code, Code of Honor, Code of Scientology. It goes down. You can see intensive procedure. All right, now, this book, as you're going to see in the chart, is the result of all, it's right after PDC, and there's all of this exteriorization research. As a matter of fact, the lectures you see in the top row, that's what he's doing. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, ACC. And I'll get to that more in a moment, but it all leads up to, this is the culmination. Here's what worked. Auditors, he's trying to make auditors be able to do it. Okay, I can do it here. This is the final conclusion, okay? All right. It is about Route 1 and Route 2. It is intensive procedure. That is what this book is. And for those not familiar with it, you just know it's intensive procedure. It is exteriorization and objectives exterior. That is it. All right, and then the book goes, change of space processing, SOP-AD, outline of lectures, this is Scientology, etc. Okay, now, I'm going to show you it this way. It's going to be a lot easier. You can see R240. It goes through all the processes. Okay, and then we go right to the end. Now, of course, that does mean end, huh? Right? There's that much left in the book. Right? Well, of course, everybody knows. You then go to the next chapter, change of space processing. That's the next advance, right? So you're reading it in sequence. That's next up. Then, of course, SOP-AD. That's next up, because that's chapter 7. Then you go to this here, this is Scientology. I'm sure the fact there's a forward on page 247 has never bugged anybody. Okay, and that's got the factors in it. Then, of course, we move on, chapter 10, SOP, procedure 8. You get it? That's how it's been, right? So I finally get the original book, which is, of course, a little mimeograph form. And there's all the original. Here's what happened now. PDC, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, ACC. He issued certain things in that period. They didn't appear in Scientology 88008, which is the preceding book. And they are all of the references that are referred to in the processes of intensive procedure, and all of those, change of space processing, SOP 8D, they're all mentioned in the process he wrote, so he included them in the original stapled together book course pack, so all the students would have all the data that preceded the entire book, and they'd have their entire reference pack of everything not available before that, and you can bring that up here. In other words, everything that appears as chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, as of course, as you go on consecutively, that's meant to be the next thing you study. They all precede the entire book. Oh, am I, yeah, did I lose you there? Too complex? Okay, here. Okay, we have a slide there. That's how it will appear. References at the end of the book. It gives a table of contents for all of the references. They're now in the correct chronological order, and that was originally, this is Scientology, the Science of Certainty. Obviously, Journal of Scientology 16G, which you've heard in lectures, that is what that is. It preceded the book. It's 1 June 1953. The book came out in 1954. We make sure that the original introduction even tells the date it came out, which is 15 July 1954, so you don't think when you're reading 1 June 1953, you're reading technology beyond the intensive procedure that preceded it by a year and was part of the research trail to get there. Now, over here, here's the first thing we want to get out. And this, I said last year, this has got to be Auditor's Day. This is very important because when you talk about knowledge, you've all heard extension course. They're like, oh yeah, extension course. Okay. No, they're not. Well, I'll tell you what else we found. We found the original Dianetics extension course by LRH, handwritten. And boy, is it a bit different than what we've had around, because it actually makes the guy, very much like, you know, go out and say why and figure out why survival is X. They are intensive, okay? This is the first step for Scientologists. Whether, I'm not just talking about new people, I'm talking about all Scientologists. They're not in an org. This is part of the lineup. Okay. That's going to be a key item so that people can be progressing. Now, when we talk about these books and lectures, I will tell you right now, this is going to be a revelation. I don't care how many times you've read these books. You should do this program when it comes out. Some of these books I've been through. One day I was through 880, 5 times that day, because I was just trying to get this one thing straight, and I finally got it. I said, okay. And I picked up the lectures that went with it, that I'd listened to. And I'm no sleep even by this point. And even with that, it hits you like I'm telling you, it hits you like a tidal wave. You go, it's a revelation, because you're literally right there. You just got done, you're in this context of the materials. It's like you were there reading, and he says, good, you're done reading, let me start telling you about it. It's something, it's just something that has to be experienced. And more than just the PDC and the 88008, because imagine getting all of that leading up to it, and you're not going, whoa, when you start that, and don't tell me you weren't. I mean, you can get it, but nevertheless, here's all what precedes it. Okay, in terms of what it is, evolution of a science, well, there's no horrible things to tell you about that. You have the book out. But I will tell you one thing. All of this is leading to every other project. To give you the first example, every tape now being available, every book, that's where the definitions are. So I know everybody asked me about the dictionary. Well, the dictionary is actually part of this, because as you go through each one, you find each successive definition. Good example. Book 1, definition of engram, okay? You get to advanced procedures and axioms, and you hear about heavy facsimile, new name for an engram. So each one you're finding, and when the dictionary comes out, you will see that list and you can see its development. So it's actually, now, as a first step, one thing that is happening is these books have glossaries that you're going to see that are, you're going to pop your eyeballs out. They're way, number one, no footnotes, so that the guy who isn't having MUs isn't constantly looking at the bottom of the page. And a very thick glossary in the back. And all of the words defined from its original source definition. Good example. Some of the definitions that used to appear in book 1 were now what we know as Scientologists. But of course, when that book came out, there was no tech dictionary or lectures. They're actually taken from electronic terms. And this shows the source of every single word, so you know why the word circuit was used, why the word key in, which is an electronics term. throw into circuit, have a switch, throw it in. So they're getting the conceptual understanding. Okay, book 1, notes on the lectures. This now, I found the tape transcription of him talking to Jack Maloney of LA infamy. He's the military dude who had a big LA org, HDRF, and took the biggest room in the building and put a desk in the middle of it, and that's what the space planning was. In any event, the original book was out, it was notes, but LRH had a stenographer there, let alone a tape recorder, very low quality, not releasable, but they was recorded, with a tape transcript of him talking to the guy, say, yeah, go ahead, put out the notes and lectures, but I want that transcribed. That's why I had a court reporter there. You know that tick, 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 you hear in some of the back of some of the lectures? It's a court reporter there to make sure it didn't get lost. That book is absolutely, that is the first milestone after Dianetics. Take all the earlier ones that take place, those aren't milestones. This is ARC. This is the first introduction of the word theta, what it is. It's both the end of book 1 in terms of entrance to a case, and it is, as Elrich called it, the best description of ARC. Put out the full transcripts. That is what this book will be, is that entire lecture series, very much similar to an R&D, but it is really the bridge point between Dianetics and Science of Survival, and it is the data on ARC. It's almost ARC and then entrance points to a case. So for a book oneer or for a Scientologist, sort of there's a pivot point on the bridge. Science of Survival, of course you know about the 2 lectures that are available on that, on theta mess theory in the chart. Self-analysis, I mentioned it last year. It's mentioned more than any other book, period. Okay, self-analysis. Here you go, here's an example of a book. Another one that is, it's, yes, beginning book, but if you were to go through all the lectures, and I have, and you go through the search commands even if you want, this book will appear so much more, it will be mentioned by Elright so much more than any other, there's not even a close second. Why? It's the book that can crack a neurotic, meaning it's great for anybody. It doesn't mean you only apply it to neurotics. If it can crack a neurotic, it's the most powerful process there is. Part of that will be for people in the field, of course, their workbook edition, so they can actually be doing it. It's entirely laid out separately. So for the guy at home doing self-analysis, it is his workbook edition, which comes from another tape, which I will tell you about. So then, of course, we move to advanced procedure and axioms. Okay, and I think I mentioned that last year, but there's a classic example of the typist taking 3 chapters and interleafing the pages. And what does it mean? It means like this. Here's what it means. I'll tell you exactly how it goes. Here you go. There's my chapter, right? And I write a new one to add to it. And I put one of the pages there. And I put another one of the pages here. Literally, I'm not just saying that. I mean, that is a book where you go through and you finally get to a point on effort processing. He wrote the entire book. We finally found the original table of contents. From there, we now dug up and found the original manuscript. And we knew exactly what was there, and then the additional parts that he wrote in order. This is a book that people go, that's another one, that's deep, right? That's deep. It's a hot knife through butter when it's correct, okay?
Is chapter 19 still there?
Yeah, but it's not chapter 19. It's in its correct location, but it is there. Responsibility is definitely it. The effort processing is the one. I don't want you to think the whole thing was like that. But we even go to the point, you know what, bring me out one of those books. We have gone back to the point, I'm going to show you how these books are going to look. We even have them typeset now, so I make sure the emphasis he gave is the emphasis that it gets. In other words, if he had an italics, it's an italics. If he had a capital, it's a capital. I'm going to give you, thank you very much. Here you go. Here's how this book actually should look. Let me get you a close shot of this. Pick a good page for you. You know, you figure when you're finally doing this, you say, you know what? I'm going to make sure this communication gets across exactly like he had it. I don't care what modern typesetting looks like. It's exactly how he had it, and that's how it's going to be. Okay. He used a lot of capital letters, and the reason he did is to beat into your head exact concepts by chapters. Meaning he would capitalize words, and let's find one here. Okay, there you go. You got that there? This here, if you look at the current word, prime thought, that'd probably be italics. No, it's prime thought, and you know thought, prime thought, prime thought. You know, he's pounding in concepts. When you get these, every one is exactly as he either hand wrote it, literally down to the way and the manner in which he wrote the words. Okay, why so important? Because this is on a subject that could have a little impact on people making it up the bridge. Service facsimiles. And how many people in the world know that this has to do with service facsimiles? It's the original data on service facsimiles. And it is. That's it. You're now looking right. You get it. 1951, there's your service facsimiles. These lectures, of course, have never been available. And they go through it, and as I mentioned last year, it is baby talk. Okay, now I told you there was another thing going on. Well, since all of this was being done to get them translated, don't think we've been wasting time. I was talking about releasing all of these that rapidly. I did use the time, and literally every one of these are not only translated in 15 languages, they're already replicated. They're on the shelf, waiting. So that's why yeah. Handbook for Pre-Clears obviously follows that. Matter of fact, they were written within a few weeks of each other, okay? And it now, if you read this does cover the subject of service facsimiles, control centers. We're starting to get into entities, things of this nature. And in this lecture series here, Life Continuum, he's doing two things. You've heard of the project on miracles. That is in this lecture series. But he also mentioned that version of Handbook for Pre-Clears to pass out. And of course, it's the one you can hand out to your pre-clears. Everybody wonders, what do I do to talk to them? I'll tell you what, you want to get them impinged upon? Give them that book. Say, go do that one. They'll come back in a puddle. They'll be ready for some auditing. Which is what it tells you to do in this lecture series. Says the one guy, hey, you don't have enough time for him? Good, give him the book. Or if you don't have enough time to deal with all the pre-clears, give them that book, and they're going to be ready for auditing. And it talks about its use in conjunction with self-analysis, two totally different things. Of course, this book starts hitting a guy on valences. It's all the lives he's leading, all the valences he's in, all the losses he's had, why he's living their lives. Again, in sequence, this has got the most, well, as I already said, the best essay on the ideal state of man in this book. Read out of sequence, I think people think it's just something for pre-clears, because here we know what a pre-clear is now, but it's actually that exact lineup. Okay. The reason these are essentials now, of course, is because if you take everything that's come before, here's exactly where they fit chronologically. Right after Handbook for Pre-Clears, you get the first course on Scientology. It's going mind, reactive mind, coming along, whoa, effort, what is this now going on? Theta. Scientology whole track, okay? And that is where that fits. And the reason it can stand on its own is this is an embracive course. Now, each of these were courses on, not on the book, so to speak, but on that subject, but this now does sort of take everything up to a next milestone. Route to Infinity, of course, well, lots of people have done this one, so I'm assuming plenty of people in this room have. But on the subject of maybe, really not covered like that anywhere else, Tone Scale of Decisions. And for History of Man, anybody who's read it, it is written right in the first page that you want a thorough understanding of these lectures, the Technique 80 lectures. Okay. Again, they're their own subject. It's Technique 80. Technique 80 is not covered in another book, nor is the rest of that subject. History of Man. I hear some people don't, I don't know. If you read, I don't know. But whatever. You read them in sequence. It's like falling off a log to get it. And for the people who say they're not getting it, well, confront it. That's the answer. That's History of Man, okay. But what there is with it are the Technique 88 lectures, and years ago we wanted to get these out. This took probably the most restoration to even make them available, but because they're so important and they're really space opera. I mean, this is that area of the roll of Earth and things of that nature, and it's right there with History of Man, and it is such an important point in terms of everything that's covered in History of Man. And so that's what goes with that. And again, those have never been available. 880, which of course goes into black and white, energy, etc., precedes 88008. Well, there's another one that's got a similar story to Creation of Human Ability. And He wrote Scientology 88. Here, I can give you an example of some of the things that might have confused people on these two. He wrote Scientology 88, handwritten version, you've all seen it. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, it's in the tech volumes. After that, he now advanced it along, okay? Became Scientology 880, electronics, really how Thetan generates energy. The guy there pulled out the last chapter of Scientology 88, okay? So now you have the whole book with about 5 chapters added, one of which he put in the wrong sequence. That wasn't that big a deal, but he took out the very ending of the original book, Scientology 88. And the net result is people reading this, you would go along and read and read and read. It's been like this since 1952, and you feel like you never really evolved. I mean, he's talking about black and white, he's talking about facsimiles, he's talking about how you, and it doesn't really end. Because the final conclusion was, okay, here's the processes you run on this Scientology 88. And with that, you'd go, good, I'm done with the first 10 chapters. I get it. The next 5 are the advance. And as I say, one of them was out of sequence. So when that book comes out, you will see that chapter in there, and it will flip over, book 2, and you'll now know what the next step was, which of course ends with the last chapter where he says you could use that old procedure, but this is much more advanced. And the guy reading the book today would say, I never got the earlier procedure. What do you mean this one's more advanced? I mean, it never resolved. Okay, that's an example of finding out what exactly what LRH intended. Well, then it goes to history of man, of which it has additional incidents that are listed. Right? No, they're there, but it wouldn't have stood out to you because this is Technique 88, okay? And he says at the end on these additional incidents he located, he says, according to 88, beauty, ugliness, which was covered in 880, and the way it appeared is that he was talking about Technique 88. No, he finished History of Man, wrote Scientology 88, which is what this was originally called, found the additional incidents, put them in here, and he's referring to, according to Scientology 880. They're little things like that. Those are little. They are relatively to what else we've been doing, but the point is, for the new guy studying them or you, now my point is there's absolutely no lack of clarity. Source of life energy is perception of truth, secrets of the mass universe, plus, okay? Command of theta, of course, fits here, and it's an overview. As he's now completed all of this, he's in London, he's giving the overview to those students. PDC, we know all about, now we hit creation of human ability. And this is really the fulcrum point. Look, here's where we are. We are going complete chronological sequence. We are on a path of reactive mind, MEST, theta, Scientology, okay, Thetan. Now we get to all of these advanced clinical courses, which I'm going to show you in a minute. They look small on this chart. It's 540 lectures in 1 year. Now, what is this? This is everybody wants to know, how do I break my considerations with the MEST universe? Of course, that's what they're all about. One after the other, objectives, of which you're going to hear about how we're drawing every single objectives out of there. And he went, good, I've got it right here. I said, good, I'm writing up the successful route, okay? What does this represent here then? It is this undercut point where he says the development to some degree was in reverse order with the advanced levels most spoken of between 52, 55. And it is this year, but now look at this tech. OT exterior, bottom of the bridge objectives. That's same tech, right? Break agreements with the physical universe. I mean, it's right in there. Here. This is going to tighten this up. I'm actually beating on this because we're going to get to this on the bottom of the bridge in just a second. Considerations take rank over the mechanics of space, energy, and time. By this it is meant that an idea or opinion is fundamentally superior to space, energy, and time. And he goes on, the goal of processing is to bring an individual into such thorough communication with the physical universe that he can regain the power and ability of his own considerations, postulates. This is really, you've got to look at that as right at the top of the bridge, right at the bottom, and that's what you're looking at there. Okay, well, all of that data moves along after PDC up to creation of human ability, okay? What do we have there? That's now Scientology. And there's a key point that happens because here's exactly what goes on. We went, Dianetics, we are not mentioning Scientology. Now it's all Scientology. And this book, of course, now unifies Dianetics and Scientology as a subject and puts them both in context. It takes the full loop. That's why the Congress he gave was called the Unification Congress. Unification of Dianetics and Scientology. So now you've got your full loop, and there is your package, and you're really up to, well, 1955, this end of 54, it was called Dianetics 55. That whole area there, you now have Dianetics to Scientology. What happens next? Now that's all worked out, now he distills it down. And here's the book I actually think most people could read about 50 more times. This is the deep one. Fundamentals of Thought for the advanced person, for the beginner. And what he does is you see these materials that are just a straight undercut at public level, taking all of this data, and they're still in advance of this. In other words, depending on how you look at it, for the advanced Scientologist or who studied all of these, it's the most super advanced book there is. For the beginning Scientologist, it's the most raw public book there is. Game of Life lectures that you know about. They're actually called a professional course. They're for non-professional auditor, and this is a key thing. And this is going to tie into something they will come out with that book. They can be heard with that book. This is the HQS course. More on that in a second. Okay. In other words, you have that bridge, you have that route extension course. That actually will be HQS. No, this is not. I'm going to not get to this. This isn't just now Dave's idea. Okay, you got that idea. So here you go, FOT, and what follows that? Next undercut, POW. These, of course, are for materials taken during that period, but definitely part of it because they cover broad Scientology zero-type concepts, study of the reactive mind, and your book, Scientology 08. And by the way, in that book, I think there's 46 scales and codes in there. We pulled them out. There's going to be 640 in the one that's coming out. Pull out every one we have. Applause scale is the type of scale you find. Applause. There's so many. It's going to have the original codes and then all their revisions, but there are many that have now been pulled from all this, and that's how complete that book will be. Okay, HQS, what are you trying to do for all these people talking about new people coming in? Well, it's not the first course, but I'll tell you what it is. You want that one that definitely jumps them over and makes them a Scientologist. That's what they're meant to be. Now, I haven't mentioned, you've heard about Congresses and ACCs. There is one other type of lecture series you would have heard about called professional course lectures. Originally, they were all that, okay? But at a certain point, he starts doing Congresses and ACCs, okay? It would go Congress, ACC, I'll show you in a minute. And every once in a while, there's a pro course. Those were what you now know as Academy. And they were the pro. Like, you want to go get your cert to be an auditor. That's the course you did. Now you wanted to get advanced skills, you go to an ACC. But you had to do that pro course. This is the 1956 pro course, which covers all basics of scales, codes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the last lecture is called Auditing as a Profession. But it's not about it's not for a Scientologist to go be an auditor and put out a shingle. It actually says, here's what I really mean by this. It doesn't mean I just want you to audit as a profession. It means you have to be an auditor so you can handle the construction company, so you can handle this, so you can handle that. But the point is, he keeps talking about, in later years, these basics that a guy has learned to become a Scientologist. Things like TRIO, which are at the back of FOT, although people don't pay attention to it. Tone 40, auditing, things of this nature. That is what this is. So combined with that, and possibly self-analysis, you make the guy become a real Scientologist. He's not going to audit for a sign-off on his check sheet. He's going to get these codes and scales so clearly, it isn't funny. And I'll get to in a minute how this is not maybe HQS. This is HQS because it is the non-pro auditor course, and it is, and well, I'm going to tell you, well, okay, I'll tell you why. But you find things like people are talking about, oh, what do I do when I start a field group, okay? In this book here, if you combine the two, you get it clearly because the first bulk of the book before the processing is handed out to your people. Okay, you're not really even caring if they get it or not. Get them in and beat them over the head with it, and it is pretty deep. And then you get them in there, you start co-auditing these processes, which are at the back, which people think, how could a new guy know how to do them? The answer is somebody's standing over them and just making them do it and telling them what to do. So you combine that all together, that becomes the HQS, and you have that full lineup. And that is not some mild course. I'll tell you how. Look, there's some courses right now that we have that are just like PTSSP. You know, you do that course, that's it. This is going to be, as for Scientologists, to make Scientologists like that, it's going to be that. It's going to be awesome. Okay? All right. So that should be the first wave, okay? I'm all the way through all those books and probably a few others. Now, back to the chart. Just for sake of clarity, what are we going to call that? Foundations. Every single part of this is covered so that hopefully in 1 year, everybody knows what all the materials are and they're not confused. Even the binders are colored, but they're the only ones colored. So when you put them all on the shelf, you're literally every part of it hopefully is going to distinguish itself from all the others. And back to this, you'll see, for now, evermore, you'll know its foundations. And we'll separate them out because you'll know that they're the exact chrono study of those basic materials. So it all ties together. They walk up to the system, and it, of course, can be just HQS at the end of Div 6, or for the Scientologists, straight through and onto those lectures. Okay, that's the foundations. Now, you're going to see that every part of this is to make sure that nobody gets confused ever again. But at the back of every one of those books and those lecture series, the further study actually, all in addition to the charts that will be available, goes through and gives the exact listing, including where the essentials fit. So you have the exact listing, but everything I've just gone over with you is detailed here. So no matter what, even if somebody misleads somebody or hands them the wrong thing, once you touch a hardback, you'll always have at the back of your hardbacks that lineup. Now, why do I say a hardback? Because there are two different things here. I've shown you a bunch of beginning books. So we want to make sure people don't get confused. So we're going to say, okay, good. There's your hardbacks. Assume that a Scientologist started reading. And some people say, well, what if he grabs, AP&A, but he's a new guy? If the guy's been in 3 months and he starts picking up AP&A, I don't care. That's the next book, read in sequence. You get what I mean? All these basic books are been considered advanced. I don't get them. There are some cognitions to be had here. Get these ones, and I'll tell you what you get. You can pick up anything and understand it. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, if we really get that, plus these lectures, you could just literally jump to any part of that chart. And you'd literally go, oh, I get how we got here. Others talks about having it so well, you just get obvious evolution. It's like that. I'll be handing this out so you'll see where it is, but it'll be at the back of every book. Okay, good. Now, thanks, I need a drink. Okay, what next? Well, hopefully by October, because part of this massive translation going on is for all the beginning books. I'm trying to get these done in 50 languages, and there's a lot of work being done in that. It's a lot tougher to do 50 than 15, because in some of those areas you don't have really advanced Scientologists that can translate. But for our Div 6 lines, it will all be paperback books, just to separate that out. And of course, every one of them, in terms of talking about that subject marketing, not really my hat, but in terms of directing people up the bridge, whatever you read at the back of those hardback books in terms of what book to study, no, it's totally different at the back of the beginning books. Same book, but it's oriented to your Div 6 public in terms of what they're supposed to do. We are doing books on tape in 15 languages for the beginning books. Then we come to this, okay? And this is a series you might have seen like this, presenting Scientology to the world. All of Dianetics and Scientology, reunification, FOT, problems of work, Washington. Why? People tell me that they're trying to figure out what a group is and how to get a pattern. That's the one. Okay. How to present Scientology. Say, man, we're trying to get them convinced. You don't try to convince them at all. You just start auditing them. You don't even wait to tell them I'm going to audit you. You just start doing it. But what this was now with all of these books, It's the basic pattern for a group and what they're supposed to do. Here's the next piece of false data, that a field auditor just audits. There's no such thing. A field auditor is really a group, or he isn't. Meaning, any type of group would have all Scientology books, would have all these components of a group, would have their own little mini testing kit, which we're going to be putting out with this for everybody, down to the field auditor. Testing, you want to get back to early development, it's one of the first things he ever developed after Dianetics. I mean, it's that old technology, so to speak, and that valuable. I mean, it is the thing that tells somebody he's changed or not, that, or pushes his ruin on him, or whatever. This series, which, like I say, is available as this, goes through and it covers everything that a group does, from how you teach, education, how you talk. The whole lecture you know about how to talk to audiences. It's because you're giving the lecture. What to do to bring them up the line. It's really the overall embracive umbrella of how to be any type of group. Now, why do I say that? Because we want several types of groups, which I've mentioned. Like, for instance, just a study group. A guy who's got a field auditor. What's he supposed to do? Get a bunch of people going, pick one, that's maybe ready for auditing and can audit them. If he just waits to get one PC and audit them, A, that's a joke. And B, it's going to be a tough way of going. He needs all of these things. But now let's take something else we've talked about, a Purif group. Purif group doesn't just do Purif. They put up all the books and they have all the components of a group. That's your bridge into Scientology. A marriage counseling group, same thing, all the components of a group. So we're working to get this out, and every component that's mentioned in it, such as the PE lectures that are mentioned in it. So you have all the lectures. Everything that he talks about in here, the testing, a field guy would have the testing, every single thing in here. And that becomes your embracive umbrella. I can start a group kit. And if you do the study of the type of group that's being started, which will be put out separately, that will always be, oh, I'm starting a group. Those are the basic lectures. And there's so much so that they even have the basic classic lectures that you should play to your public, even on your little system of, oh, listen to this lecture. And there are many classics that are in there. So that's something we're pushing for. And again, that has been translated in 15 languages. We're just looking to get that whole kit put together so we can have every type of kit, and I have the CBCM there as a specific example of one we're talking about. Dianetics is another one, but we want that bridge going up. You have a book one group, get them the rest of the Scientology books. You have your bridge right into Scientology. And we're really working to put all these together as a kit. I mentioned last year Dianetics films. We're shooting 16 Dianetics films right now, book one films. You have your how-to film. There's 16 15-minute films, and they take up every part of the book. So you just get the guy auditing. He watches the film, he learns what are the dynamics. Good, put him back in session. And you just, one by one, and the guy's coming into a seminar in an org or even in a group, another 15-minute one. They're right from the book, but they're actually really magnificent looking. Until he finally gets up to things like, I was mentioning the other night, bouncers, deniers, holders. Why do we want the guy to know this? Because it just pounds in. What is the reactive mind? What does the reactive mind do? How does it bounce you on the track? What does it mean? If you can lay this out while just keeping the guy auditing, this guy, if he gets that down on book one, he's got it forever. But you just read it. Anybody who did that new course, you saw it there. You're wasting your time if you don't do Dianetics. And then again, though, the whole kit, how to run it, how to run that group. Well, this is basically the embracive one for even a Dianetics type group. Okay. Wow. Right, I'm complicating. I'm overwhelming you now, huh? Okay. So I wouldn't talk too fast. Okay, fine. That's the end of that subject. All right. Okay. See, I haven't mentioned one yet that isn't important. Do you get what I mean? That's why, okay. So let's hope September, let's hope October, not because it's the event, just because it's the quantities that we're talking about in terms of what gold produces. You emptied out every piece of furniture on this ship, they wouldn't fit here. The quantity that's been produced. Hopefully by September, maybe I'll get a video shot of some of the warehouse and it'll blow your mind, okay? I mean, it really will. Congress's ACCs. Well, I decided this year to give you an easier one. Imagine that's on the shelf there. Why Congresses? Congresses are, after this period that we've just discussed, now you're right where we are on the time track. Each one's the next milestone. And what would happen? Congress, they deliver to the auditors the technology on how to do it. Now, a good example. Has co-audit, which we don't do anymore. Okay? and there's a lot of these things. Well, this is covered in the white binders. White equals Congress. What does that mean? Any Scientologist. Black equals auditor, ACC. Okay, he would do the Congress, he would then deliver that service. Well, here's why it's so important that I get out everything. Which one would you like to omit? So in terms of your own study, though, you look at that. I'm going to break this down. You say, well, which one should I study? Well, of course, you know, for the one who wants to travel the whole road, actually, you know. But, I don't know. I'm going to give you a gradient. I want you to think every white one, right? There you go. Looks like a lot of binders. Now think about this. Most of them were delivered between Friday evening and Sunday evening. You'd be in London, Friday evening to Sunday evening. You go to DC, Friday evening to Sunday evening. And it wasn't just lecturing. He would lecture, and in between the lectures, there was co-auditing and so forth. In other words, a great deal of them are 6, 7 lectures, 8 lectures. If you just skip the football game for 20 weeks, or the movie and just whatever, no, just, or, you know, or even just every other week, you would literally have the entire, every single milestone of Scientology in 1 year. Wow. Right, okay, so, yeah, make them work in front of all. And that is how easy it is now. Those are the events. There's Anatomy of the Spirit of Man. Some were a little more packed, but a lot are that small. Just take the weekend, you've got it. And of course, in them, we have all the issues from that time period. So you're actually getting each milestone. Well, you become, you know, the total non-confront goes away. In other words, when you have all the data available, you study it all, it just all is gonna click when you do it that way. So for the Scientologist who's not out there practicing, but wants all the milestones, and that's it. It's about 20 weeks. On the weekend, about 6 hours. Now, don't forget, when you start doing it, you're not going to have these MUs because you're going to have already read the definitions in these lectures. And there's not just definition, but the whole description. So it really is, when you hear 58 minutes, you go, oh, okay, 58 minutes. I got 58 minutes. You don't go, I have 4 hours and 27 minutes to get through the first half. And that's what it becomes. Okay. But why the ACCs at the same time? Well, if I don't, every one of these congresses now has about 3 different key things. 1, it's the milestone presented to a Scientologist. And 2, it talks about the 3rd and 4th dynamic program that we're launching on. And it gives all these programs you've heard, like a Project 3rd Dynamic, or, and I've mentioned it before, State of Man. A lot of you have probably listened to that. He's talking about starting marriage counseling groups. It mentions it in passing. Of course, if you go to a Congress one later, you probably would have just heard on Insemination Help. He says, I don't get why these people haven't started the marriage counseling. I don't know what's going on. He's talking about the State of Man Congress, which if you look at that wall right there, it's the immediate preceding one. Well, we're pulling those projects out of each one, which will be available, so everybody in the org will have something to do under the group's officer, okay? And then he announces a new service. Here's an example of missing tech. 6th London ACC, Theta Clear Congress. Here's the plan for planetary clearing. Has co-audit. You can open your tech volumes. There's HCOBs, HCOBs, HCOBs. What we need are soups that are trained on how to soup that type of co-audit. And that's where it's given. Right. And have you ever seen that one out? No. I want all the Congress and ACCs to come out. And the reason I'm spending time with you now is so when this comes out, if there's any H&R, handle it. This has nothing to do with the caper to get people to, quote, buy it. You need all that material out, at which point you now have everything out that I can train every Div 6 on all of those services he developed over the years. So a Div 6 has hundreds of real services in addition to your basic books, your life improvement courses. We say, okay, baby, sit down, we're doing a co-audit of which requires hardly any indoctrination, except for me to have the soups everywhere that are trained on that technology to be able to run it. So that's why that's being done. So in terms of where we've been going now on translations, it's a 24/7 operation. All but about, if you take all those white binders, multiply it by 15, I don't know what it adds up to. I think it's about 180 lectures of all total. There you go. Multiply it by 15. There's about 55, 60 lectures total in all languages that aren't yet recorded. They're almost all recorded and done on all the congresses. Our problem then becomes on the ACCs getting them out to foreign languages. So what our plan is that they would come out in 15 languages, all the congresses, and the ACCs in English, but I will now have the material to do the course for a foreign person. I can rapidly translate written what they need to be able to deliver that service and have the demo tapes available to them in a very similar format to what I explained to you there, where they can hear LRH doing the demo and read the transcript. And that's how I rapidly do it. But so all of this here isn't really just in English. I'm trying to get this out so that every org is on the same page, including in foreign languages. And you have to understand, I mean, if you've been to a place, well, Italy, when I was there earlier this year, I was talking to the bookstore officer, told me we're gonna be coming out with the books. He said, creation of human ability? I mean, even to me, I said, you don't have, no, never had it. I look at their bookstore, I said, where's your books? It looks like this. That's what their bookstore looks like. No, that's it. You ask the foreigners here, go speak to them. You American-speaking people, you don't know how good and lucky you have it. I mean, it is, and I want to change that. I want to change it with authority, and I want to make sure that when they get it, it's not some confusing jumble. So, chart, we know what those are. There's your congresses and ACCs when they come out. Now I have the rest to now start filling in all these orgs. So why these big orgs? Why the big Div 6s? Yeah, it's going to be an HQS. Yeah, it's going to be your other basic course you know. Yeah, it's going to be your co-audit. Yeah, it's going to be your real group processing, which, as I mentioned before, is really for Scientologists somewhat up the line. Yeah, it can be an intro service. Scientologists, all the time, group processing. Yeah, it's going to be your co-audit. Now, they did one at CC last year. Whoever's CC Public, who was there at that? They held a Congress at CC. You couldn't kick the public out to go eat dinner. And that had the co-auditing going on, right? And that's what we're talking about getting out. There's a little pilot I had there because it's one org. You say, look, here's the data. I give them the data. Let's see how it goes. And I hardly give them any heading. Don't even really give them much. It was sort of like a little pilot. Let's see how easy this is to go. How easy? It was how easy? Way easier than I expected. So we get out all the materials. Okay, that takes you through that. Now, top there are what I keep mentioning, this first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth ACC. And of course that leads up to creation of human ability. Okay. How does this all now tie together? Let's go down to the bottom of the bridge again. Let's talk about getting people up the bridge, okay? So we're talking HQS basic books. Well, I will tell you one thing, somebody who studies these books is going to have a lot easier time in session because they're going to have a clue what's happening with their case or what the case even is, okay? And that's how we say, oh, what book should my PC listen to or a PC coming online? So the answer is, there's your chart, read them. And it's really not, I'm telling you right now, any bugs people have, I don't get it, they do this, I just don't believe it's going to come up. I'm telling you right now, I do not even believe it. If they pick up that lecture series on top of it, it is simplicity because you're hearing it as it was given. Okay. Now let's talk about what do we do with the bridge to get people going. This really does tie in OT 9, 10, because if you think this doesn't have to do with that, I mean, I go, okay, orgs, we can get these ideal orgs, put in the lines, okay, here's the beginning. Our problem isn't the top, though, it's the bottom of the bridge. Okay. Here's what we have now. Guy comes in, it's real, you have a purif, guy going on objectives. First of all, as I told you before, we're going to have films that orient him to what an objective is. But once you've gone through those lectures, and then later on when CCHs come up, which will be described, but for instance, they're in the radiation series. Okay, that's CCHs. I mean, you wouldn't know that from the title, but that is it. It has gone over so much. So this was the next research project with LRH talking about. He keeps mentioning this datum on RJ36, 1 month grades, huh? 1 month grades means 1 month or thereabouts for grades, a couple books in the evening. We've just gone through the books. Okay, what is it? And now let's get down to stuff, words I can't mention in a public event like money, economics, time. There's a certain point where you can hit the level where you say, well, the guy, it's such an overwhelm, he'll never make it. And if you just say it's just nothing, then there's no staff member in the world that could live on it, because he could never live if auditing was 5 cents an hour. I mean, it's a problem, okay? Number one, the first answer to that question is these objectives, because here is what it should be. Now mock this up. Guy comes in, he's through his purif. We really get him grooved into what an objective is. We can run a co-audit on objectives. That is going to be the completion of this long-term project, and specifically directed by LRH on when he was doing OT levels. These guys are going to flounder all over on the grades, especially with Dianetics being moved later. That isn't the bug, the Dianetics being moved later. You know, we've often thought, well, maybe it's because this guy, Dianetics, he's not getting this reality in the reactive mind. He studies the book, he gets it. But don't forget, 1965 when the grade chart came out, look at it. You won't see Dianetics before the grades. You see what I mean? So it's not, but here's one, these objectives that people were doing, and he wanted every single objective process since the dawn of time put together in the gradient approach. And now here's the real deal. I get this done. Some are heavy druggies, some aren't, some are bad off, some aren't. But mock this up, the guy signs up for the TRs and objectives co-audit, he's got all of them, and I don't care how long he's in that course from under a co-audit, at the cost of a TRs and objectives co-audit. And what do I want him to do? 200, 300, 400, you want to do 600 hours? Go for it, bud. Go and go and go and go and go and go and go. For the guy who really doesn't need 600 hours, he's going to be done. For the guy who does, go and go and go and go, because his case, you guys get it, will be locking in. And now we're ready for the grades. Okay, so step one is that. And in terms of an org delivery, you take it down from the amount of auditing with one-on-one PC and what a guy's going to have to pay for per hour of auditing. And you get down to a co-audit super who just knows objectives so cold it isn't funny. What do you need in terms of resources? In ours, it handles that economic factor in terms of the org's delivery and for the public making it up to bridge. Okay, next step, grades. This I have now been working on putting together, and this is an urgent crush, and this is really, guy's got the objectives, okay? He's ready. Let's assume this guy's set. And let's assume he's not just professional PC route, but he's actually doing the objectives course. Okay, we get that guy where he really goes through the objectives to the point where he wants to just kill his auditor and back down, and kill his auditor and back down. And as an auditor, he wants to kill his PC, and the PC wants to kill him. In order to really get this guy beefed up, which, by the way, the final bit on that objectives was that radiation. You'll notice that the next series is Freedom Congress. Why? Because you have to be that high in the tone scale to deliver the toughest processing there is, which is these objectives. You have to be tone 40 without having to move the guy up case-wise. We better be able to develop tone 40 techniques, and that's your operand doc to yours. There's your little developmental track there, and that's why that's so important. We mentioned a few years ago about, maybe I did, suppressive checks. You ever heard that term? What? Suppressive checks. No? Well, there's a basic theory in organization, and frankly on the grade chart, and it's called fast flow, and I'm not talking about fast flow study. And organizations are meant to be fast flow. They walk into the org parallels the grade chart, and read the policy. The policy isn't check, 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 check. Inspection before the fact is the worst thing you can do. Okay, you just, there's the runway, sprint, jump on a motorcycle, jump on a rocket as far as I'm concerned. And that's the way the route's supposed to be, and you check it where you get the outness, okay? And suppressive checks are talked about in these organizational tapes in terms of you get one SP on the org lines, and they didn't catch him, and he was a plant. And now every PCU comes in. We're going to check this baby out nonstop. That's what a suppressive check is. You check everybody, see if they're suppressive. Where in reality, ethics is supposed to come down, and he says, maybe it's with steel-toed boots or something like that. Of course, the guy screws up, comes down, comments like mad, pummel him, tech goes in, that's it, you move on. You come down heavy where it requires it. But if you start checking everybody, you've now checked everybody for the one SP. Well, just apply that. I'm not talking about SPs now, but let's take, for instance, the guy who's the slowest case game in the world that bypassed his objectives and is currently still draining heroin out of his body. And what would he need to make it up the grades? And if you apply that lineup to everybody else, that could be called a suppressive check. Okay, you get what I mean? Here's how this one goes down. This is, now if I'm going to lose you ever, it's right now. 1968. You've all heard of quickie grades. It's right at the top of keeping Scientology working. Okay, you go through the whole grade chart. It's really all of this technology, if you take a look at it. Now there's the briefing course, which is a lot on goals, and then he's got these stages of release, which is the exact gates, and a lot of processes put on those grades, okay? And that's they are, grade 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, they're the exact gates. Expanded grades. Well, what were people doing in 1968? Hello, I'd like to talk to you about your tone arm's floating. Matter of fact, your theta clear, okay? That's how quick it went. No, there's no joke. That's how quick it went. All 4 grades in 5 minutes. It's not just said there, it's true. Okay, so there's a major process for the grade for you auditors, and you know that. There's a major process, which is the grade process, and it appears at the end of the checklist. And the reason it does is because it used to be the first process on the checklist. Okay, well, Elrich said when that quickie grades was going on, he said, you know what, move that grades process, that major one for the grade to the end, and they have to get through it. So that's how he's going to, they have to do all the preceding grades processes and get to the expanded grade. There's one, you get what I mean? So they have to do the dozen processes and get there. Okay. Now, this isn't just this lineup here, because I'm actually getting out all the data on these grades, because that grade process is really the main one for the grade, and I've found some pretty bizarre things that people are doing, like just making a little list and assessing it on the comm process, but it actually, the auditor's supposed to listen to the PC and note it down in session and be there and, actually know about it. Okay, put that aside. Put that aside. That's a separate matter. That's my ethics matter, okay? Yeah. And you look past that and you go, here's what happened. Sure, so we put out all the rest of the process so a guy can make it. Let's take it when the guy's on grade 0 and doesn't make it after the dozen processes. So maybe 50 more. You put the expanded grade at the end of the year of the 50. There's about, I think it's 36 to 50 processes that are absolutely the expanded grades. Like absolutely, that's how many you do minimum. And you do your grade, process, grade process for the grade. The guy who makes it, he can attest. And then if he didn't, we go, okay, good, CS. Do this one, right? All those are on there for every PC, and put the major one at the end of that. Till there's 475 that everybody has to do. So when I talk about speeding grades by 10 times, I do mean by 10 times speed, and we are now piloting this, and the objectives that started as one pilot, which is a sensation when people start getting this. It's the handling for both the public wanting to get up the bridge and the staff member, because a guy in a 2.5-year contract, I want clear, non-solo by the end of that time. And there's a certain amount of time that a staff member is allocated per year. And where you find orgs don't have these staff auditors, it's part and parcel because they're not gonna get it at any rate. We need 900,000. They'd be in session the entire time they're on staff for 2.5 years. Wow. But not if they're in a co-audit, and now just with their allocated time in that 2.5 years, they'd be through grades, net, either clear or solo clearing course. For the public, you're not talking about the difference between now and in 5 years. You're talking about the difference between now and overwhelm and failed purpose. Why even bother? And I'll never make it. And you're talking about, for the average guy. Well, I took the month and I said, okay, this intensive is 25 hours or 12.5. So it's 50 to 100 hours, and that's what people are getting through the grades in. Yeah. So my crush is to get out all these objectives so I can get all the data for these co-audit soups. So because it really does require that objectives, it's not good enough to just stand there. It's not supervision like this. We can't do that type of supervision on the co-audit. It does require, there's one where it really does require a guy who really knows his stuff. He's a co-audit soup. Do that now, we can have, because students really do start going ballistic, huh? They're untrained, they're very lightly trained, and the objective process, some are gonna drive them right up the wall, especially when you say, nah, you've only done 900 hours so far, not pro by dupe, and pick that bottle up again. Some of these, by the way, have group processing off pro by dupe, some of these lectures, okay. Yeah. So I gotta get that, and that's what we're working on, getting that so we can, now, people can get trained. This is also gonna be for missions. See, this is something to really get them going there so they're really ready, okay? And then the grades, well, I thought, man, I'm almost there, but now with all of this here, a separate part is pulling in what people are doing because there's also that correction angle, and you go, wait a second, man. Some of these processes say clearly what to do, and you as an auditor must do it, so it's just requiring a little bit more export. I mean, I gotta make sure it goes in correctly, but these are 2 crush rushes. Well, we do this now, look what you have. First of all, a guy comes in, and we're gonna get more when this gets released on how you just get the guy being audited, okay? Books, guy doing this on his processing, he's gonna get the deep stuff right away, and he's gonna have an idea what his reactive mind is. Get him onto the objectives. If we have a great soup, see, you could say, well, maybe he doesn't get it yet. No, this is not the reality. That's not the problem, I know, because I now piloted it. You stuff him in the room, have him do the objectives, that does not come up. And anybody who says it does, they're talking too much, and they should shut their mouth and make the guy just do it. And I'm serious. Okay, just get him doing it. No, they're gonna make the case change. That's what you want. Just do it. But I know what's been happening in that. We get that out now. That's your basic. That is your basic audit. You got your HQS in terms of making a Scientologist, your objectives in terms of the guy doing it, not being panicked. And any auditing price. The amount of hours he might need, you get what I mean? But we got the co-audit there. Now in terms of orgs and what it takes for them to get a substantial income, to talk bluntly. Well, it ties into how rapid these things get done. How long does it take to train somebody? Academy takes 9 months, divide the cost of the service in that. Let's talk practicalities. How do the staff live? Divide that number of staff into 9 months. There is a problem, they gotta live. And and the other one is the public. So it's really, that's what's being resolved here, not for that purpose, it just is. And for the staff member making it up the bridge. So those are the 2 gigantic crush projects I'm on, and why I mentioned so heavily those 540 lectures up there with all the objective processes. Okay, so you got that. Now, in terms of, right, I'm gonna get to something in a minute now, more on tech. Now, in terms of even the materials, just a little footnote. We started this project because I knew we had to get out all of these, although admittedly not just how desperately it all needed to be out. But I did look it up and going through all these materials, and I want you to realize in terms of, it looks like a lot of materials. Like I said, when you look at the chart, you know how many lectures are in each one. It's doable by anybody. But I pulled out the cost of lectures in 1952, $50 an hour, 1952 prices. And do you know, I'm gonna give you an example now, because with this we worked on, we've expanded that compact disc line so dramatically, we can do, I think it's 40,000 compact discs a day. I talked about it's the on-demand printing that we do. You don't realize that somebody does every single part of these things, the label and everything. But now it's installed, it's a massive investment. We can get it out for the small languages. You can just print a small amount, English, in a day. It's done for the whole world for the release. Do you get what I mean? It requires work. But it's about, they're all gonna be $15 to $20 per hour, 2004 prices. Or to give you an example, all of these lectures here, we're calling the foundations, and include the PDC and the Phoenix, when they're out, it is less than what the PDC was 3 years ago on cassette tape. The whole shooting match. So that's what it's gonna be, yeah. Thank you. You guys weren't reading my notes up here, were you? And I put some books out here so people could look at them. I want them back. Oh, there they are, okay. Wait till you see them, by the way. The people who look through them, I'm telling you, they're even laid out to the point where like by survey, they're the easiest things in the world to read. Everything to take away the non-confront. I mean, really, they're just easy to read. One thing I might not have mentioned is the definitions that are in there are literally drawn from right at that time period, so it's a definition as applies then. And as for the dictionary, like I say, all of this actually, the dictionary doesn't get done as a separate project. It just all of a sudden is at the end of the whole project. You get what I mean? Okay, right. Now, let's talk about the last frontier here on speed of auditor training, and I'm going to give you a little insight as to what's coming up. And I'm still going to hold something out on you, though. I am. There's one thing I'm holding out on you. I've been holding out for a while because I've been promising it for a long time, but this is required. Nope, I'm not going to tell you. There you go. Tell you one thing I'll tell you. How many trained auditors in this room? How many trained auditors? Good. I might have found, now for real, the missing element, skip gradient, for all of you, unless you've studied one particular thing. I've just told you about this HQS, now I'm going to tell you. Trained auditors, BC, Academy, whatever, okay? Now, raise your hands if you've studied the lectures that are released as Skills of a Theta Being. Good for you. You should listen to them again, because if you haven't listened to them, it's like a hole. It's a chasm the size of the Grand Canyon. It's the worst title in the world to put on them, and I'm going to fill this one in because this is, first of all, let's get to the 3 parts of training, and one is knowledge. And this one's recent. Going through the lectures, 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 going through. I was telling you about this the other night. And you get to those lectures, and it's like, whoa, wait a second, what is this? Which resulted in the following string pull. Following string pull goes like this. Okay, you want an academy guy, and everybody knows we want that academy guy to be able to handle life. It's not just audit. Okay, and I'm going to look at that course. Okay, what else do we get in this course that RH wanted on this course so this guy can handle anything? I mean, you know, your business, job, etc. It's exactly what he meant. Okay, then it goes from that series because they are the missing link, and again, not just Dave's idea. No, okay, why do I say that? I said, no, there's something here. Which got me on to the following. And this ties into you going on to your solo, if you're not a trained BC, the academy. Let's take a look at it now. We had people as a pro auditor or a certified auditor. Pro auditor if you were in England, certified in America, certified meaning insane in England, so they called it a pro auditor. So you're HCA, HPA, that's why the difference. No, that is the reason. It's Hubbard certified auditor, that means you're certifiably insane. So it's Hubbard professional auditor in England. So here, HCA, HPA training. Okay. I thought everybody knew this. Okay. Here, okay. Oh, I'll tell you some other things then. Okay. Now, they do an ACCs, but then the briefing course starts. Okay. But anybody who's been in the briefing course, it picks up at that point there. And it's going along, and like I say, it's a lot on goals, et cetera. And at the end of all this, you get the grade chart, and now LRH codifying the whole grade chart, which is really drawn from all these materials, like what we went through, service facsimiles, a lot of the process. They're drawn from that with modern auditing, model session, et cetera, applied to it, okay? I said, wait a second. What were these guys doing before they arrived at St. Hill when the briefing course started? That's my question. Well, they're HPAs or HCAs. Okay, fine. But then the academy levels, they come out of the briefing course, and a lot of that data is just from the briefing course lectures. But wait a second, they're going to be, we know we just want a basically skilled guy in the academy. Okay, no, they were HPA auditors going to the briefing course. And then, as I started pulling it, okay, that's what they had to do. Well, then after the briefing course, you used to have to be briefing course to do solo, too. And of course, we now have it that if you're clear, you can just do the briefing course, right? But okay, how does this match up? Because some people on the briefing course, you'd be surprised at the requests I get from people on the briefing course, untrained auditors, the amount of things they want on it to extend the length of it to hopefully, I guess, by the time we're done, 50 years, okay? It's great that a guy's really spending a long time on book one, but you know, if we get the guy in the briefing course, we don't want that lineup for everybody. Do you get what I mean? We want him to get the data, and this lineup, he's going to get it. So what else were they doing on solo or whatever? Well, half of the answer is those 1956, these lectures. They were. one. They were done after Fundamentals of Thought to make a course for this non-pro auditor, meaning the non-professional auditor, professional Scientologist. And that is what they were done for. I mean, there are letters. I've got to put this together so they have the application of this, and they're a real Scientologist in life. And later on, he says that 56 pro course is, of course, HQS, which is the equivalent to your little HCA, HPA sort of. It's right in the briefing course lectures. Then we get to the next one, though. Skills of a theta being. Somebody put a title on this, and it really, like I say, well, they actually have already been slaughtered, so don't worry about it. Because that's got to be the worst title in the world, and it's just completely non-descriptive and misleading, and it looks like, you know, this is one of your OT hatting. He is going on, here's what happens. He's going on in 1965. Where are the lectures on these basics, axioms, codes, scales, etc.? 67, 68, I have the handwritten. 71, he asks again. 73 says, where are these? Okay, and finally somebody pulls them out and they never went out. And then after that, now how did this get lost? Somebody in Washington, D.C., during the period of the briefing course without his authorization, decided, oh great, we'll just remove those lectures from the lineup, which are the ones. What are these? Well, this is more like what they are, because it's exactly what he calls them, the fundamentals of fundamentals. It's right in the lecture. These lectures take up each subject of Scientology, go through this whole chart I've just shown you, one by one, 1 hour, the entire subject. Let's not say this isn't going to give you much more depth of understanding, but he does take them. I'll give you an example. Okay, beingness and communication. It takes up what beingness is, start to finish, every angle, 360-degree view, turns it inside out and says, there you go, now we're done with that one. Universes, what the different universes are, 360 degrees, inside out, every angle, we're done with that. The dynamics, inverted dynamics, what they have to do with universes, how these all interrelate, everything on the dynamics. In other words, if you were to pick one lecture that would have the greatest description and cover everything that could possibly be said about the dynamics, it's in that one lecture. And these were recorded to be that pro course, and they're called the actual Hubbard Professional Auditors Course Lectures, Special Professional Auditor Course Lectures. And they are the missing link. And it is, and has been, a missing element. And if you were even vaguely a Scientologist, the level of understanding you need to understand these is if you were vaguely a Scientologist. About the only thing in here that you may, if you haven't had it in previous training for even a new person, is OW, motivator, what it means. It's about it. Otherwise, you pick these up and listen to them, and I'm telling you, they're almost like a classic lecture in simplicity, because he says, I'm taking it down to rock bottom basics, and you're going to become a pro, and I'm going to teach you this subject. And it was to give the complete and utter description on each thing of Scientology. And I mean, he takes it right through scales beyond the, oh yeah, we have these scales, and the codes, oh yeah, that's cool, we follow that. And it really turns them inside out as applies to dynamics, beingness, et cetera, until you know the whole subject. Okay, you want to fill in the hole? There you go. That's the one. For our auditor training, that's the one. It literally is the whole, positively, not maybe. Okay, so much for that. That's the end of that. I'm not going to give any more horror stories like that. And I'm sorry. We've been working on this for a long time, but you finally get through it all, and then it's just pull, and you go, my God, this is going to be something. Now let's get down to application. Okay. Application. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple neat things coming up. Because I also have this problem of no matter what else you put out, you know, we want to expand, get groups going, open up new orgs, people learn. What do? It's the basic problem of, it's KSW, that's all. But we know where people really slow down now in their training. Put aside what I'm going to do to speed up in terms of their missing gradient. What this is going to mean. Imagine a new guy coming in, hasn't had all these years of experience. Look at us. I mean, I want to have the 18 to 20-year-olds here on OTA. You get what I mean? And this we're talking about, you know, look at us. Okay, complexities. Man, that meter is apparently complex to people because people can take a long time in that metering course, okay? Still things you can bug. People can get into this endless TRs. You need TR soup, but metering. This is really the a frontier on golden age of tech because, of course, the whole, if you take a look at what that is, it's just drilling the right way to do something, you get it. But a metering guy, without somebody really knowing his stuff standing over him, the guy can really go off the rails and be at it forever, and he's positive he can't make it. And I run into it practically every time I go somewhere. Even last time I was at St. Hel, there's a guy there, hell, he's been on 90 months or whatever. And I've been at it, and it's just miscalling reason. You have to just slap him around pretty hard, actually. But boy, he gets it, and you're talking 5 minutes. So we've been working on a couple things here. Here we go. I'm going to show you one thing that now we got to, believe it or not, simplicity, but it does work. Here's our little pilot. Okay. And this, hopefully, look at this is, you're seeing prototype stuff here now. Okay, let's start in this little display here. Okay, and then this isn't coming out tomorrow. No, really, this is between us now. This is not coming out tomorrow. This is not. This is just getting, no, it is not. But I'm going to show it to you. Deal? What happens? If anybody's here been on a pro metering course, what, you see people and they walk over to the TV, they're measuring the read. Okay, we get all these things. How long have you been on it? 7 months. Really, what have you been doing? For the last 6.5, I've been on my final assessment. It shouldn't be like that. Okay, here's a little device, and here's a training aid that really is going to speed this up. This is a reads recorder, and it's right there for the guy in doing the assessment. So here you go. Student would be there. It's got a microphone, a headset. Coach would have it as well, right? I'm going to play it for you over the speakers because obviously you're not going to all be able to hear this, you know. And what this does is a guy doing an assessment or any reads, it records it onto a hard drive. It will record hundreds of hours. You can record many assessments on it. And they play them back immediately, and it plays back on the meter. And here we go. I'll give you got the camera on there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go. There's just a little setup here. You can see it looks a bit odd. Okay. Right here, various buttons and whatever, different files, meaning which assessment did they do, you know? It just goes up. I can move it up. Okay, I'm just going to play one now. Imagine somebody just did an assessment. You're going to have to get it on the meter. I played back their assessment that second. You have to show this whole
What
thing.
vegetable do you like the least? Spinach?
And there it all is right there, instantaneously.
Turnips? Leeks? Potatoes? Celery?
Okay, we go to the next assessment, and that one they're checking.
Which musical instrument would you like to play? A flute? A clarinet? A contrabass? A guitar? And a...
Okay, so we put this in a course room, and we did do it, because I thought, well, I don't know, I mean, is it really going to... It's instant, that's the point. The coach and the student are there. We haven't had a student bug in the pro meeting that's been doing it yet. I mean, it literally has reduced it down to check sheet time because it's right there. We're not to a video, we're not to a screen, we're not to anything else. It's instant, anybody can go back and play it, even if the soup wasn't watching them, there it is. So that's step one, and it's end of metering bugs. Okay. Yeah. Now, that's something we've been developing, and I just have to get all the interface ready so people can hook it up in their, to their meters in their room, and that's probably the furthest in the distance from these, quite frankly. And there's several of these things we just developed, and okay, in any event. Now, here's another one. Here's we really get. And this is something I've been able to take from Flag, and I'm going to be able to bring it right down to org level. Because one thing you know, if you've been through the Flag AO down there, you notice that they can record their sessions. Every single one on a hard drive, high security, no videotapes floating around. You can look right at the session. If you knew the cost of that baby, whoa, that wasn't going to be too viable to put in the orgs. So we've been working on this for a couple of years, and we have a system here that for 15, $20,000, maybe we can put it into an org with 2 HGCs networked throughout the entire place, into their qual cramming, into their CS office, into everywhere. Now, let's take a look, and look what you can do now. First of all, put aside the CS looking at it. Best auditor criticism is your own. BC tape. Look at your session. You know you suck. Right? So, a guy goes into cramming, I mean, you know, right there, and it talks about, in that tape it talks about, you know, you can look at your session, he was talking about listening to it. He says, the guy always thinks the session went off the rails at the wrong point. He's gonna hear it went off the rails 15 minutes earlier. Now to be able to see it, you really do see it. You see the whole thing crumble and fall apart. And it's, you know, it's in terms of training, like, look, we can do everything we want in the course room, but you know the guy is white-knuckled by the time he's going in session with the public. And if you don't know that, he is. I have never seen an auditor. If I see an auditor that isn't scared out of his mind, he doesn't care then. I mean, they are terrified back there. Like, I'm going to have a real person in front of me, and this is, Jesus, yeah. Get in the room. And you want to weld the door shut, because the quickest they want to do is bail. And unless you can get them to go through it, they're never going to become certain or have their own confidence. And once they do, then they will. But anyway, we have this, and what it does, it basically records the whole session, but again, it plays it back over an actual meter for both the auditor and the CS. It's not just recorded there, we actually see the session. And to give you an example of what it can do, you on this now? Here's just a little assessment. You know, so it's recorded on the hard drive. Here you go, I can just hit play, here we go.
Squeeze the cans, please. Thank you. Take a deep breath and let it out. Thank you. We're going to assess the prepared list. Okay. What country would you like to live in? United Kingdom, Ireland, Sweden, Denmark.
Okay, so you get the idea. Now, let's imagine a long session too. The types of things you can do. You can look in the worksheets. Well, here's what's going to happen. This is why it takes a bit to get this totally right. If the meter's modified, so when they hit the TA reset button, the 0, right? It starts the clock running on the computer. Now we got the time, we now have an idea in the session where it is, and literally, the ease with which you can do it is you can just grab your little icon. Oops, let me just get over here, I'm a righty, sorry. You know, and you can scan it along, go to any part of the session you want.
Hungary?
It's got the time right there on the clock.
Yugoslavia. Greece.
Focus it in any part of the session.
Ukraine.
So,
Turkey.
there you go. That's our
Saudi
session
Arabia.
record system, which is going to be our
Lebanon.
next frontier in quals in every Class 5 org in the world. And what that does, that's the main bug on the practical end, the main bug on now you want to intern people, get them to audit, and those are really the two quals of the whole lineup in addition to what else I've been telling you. And as I say, it's not that far in the future, it's just a matter of manufacturing being able to interface everything and just getting it done. There's a lot of work being done in a lot of these systems, that sort of thing. Everything else you see around here, you know, your high definition system, somebody developed that, we're getting it down to the point when we open up a new org or mission, we send out a file, be able to do it over the internet. It plays back off the computer in high definition. No disk even has to go out. Do you get what I mean? We have systems being developed, little ones for groups. So if they just have their study group or whatever, they can play any of these different things, events or whatever, right there in their org, to missions, so we can get them a system that's takes all these different systems we have into their just one room, because they don't have all the space that an org is going to have. So they have the benefit of many of the public films, lectures, things of that nature, when we get all these lineups out to the org. That's a little bit in the future. Not that far, but I'm basically giving you, what am I trying to do? I gotta tell you something, what am I trying to do? Every one of these things, no matter how complex they all seem or different in the whole week of events, there's one reason for all this. Just get people up the bridge, that's it. You get it that way, and that's all. And it's every one of these. I mean, I go, well, books, okay, they're gonna make it quicker in session, plus they're gonna have the data they need, they'll make it in any course. Get out all these materials, so we have all the materials for every different type of service. It's not that everybody in the whole planet is going to have to be doing all of a sudden the whole chronological study, 1950, until they get up, and then they can make it to OT. No, it's that you can now take the elements, that guy's had it on this guy's had it on that, and that's how we get the 1,000,001 functions and services back into operation in the org, and that's really where we go on that whole public phase and the technical phase, quite frankly. Okay? So that's your general overview, and as I say, there is even another item that I haven't even mentioned that I think is bigger than everything else I spoke to you about so far. That's later. I haven't mentioned the OEC in 15 languages. I haven't mentioned what we're doing on Super Power, although I swear that opens, that would be a whole day. That's going to be beyond NASA. It's going to be, and it's not, there's a lot of work being done on these sort of things. So that's your general overview, which I wanted to give you. And like I say, it spans out over the next year. I didn't mention OT 9 and 10. When I say it's getting everybody up the bridge, it's actually, let's get that opened up and let's have the flood right up the line too. I mean, let's just take us as the pilot cases who did the, you get the idea, and make that route so streamlined for everybody. It is a straight shot forever. Way beyond into eternity. So that's what this is all about. What I wanted to leave you with is something to remind you of something you did very well on last year, and that is the message to Garcia. And I thought you'd like to hear it from LRH, which is him relaying it in the special evaluation lectures, and that is what I'm going to leave you with. And I know when you go out this year, I don't need to give you 1,000,000 tactical orders. We know what the purpose is. And there is a basic target that I'll give you, which is which is a vital target of every mission order ever written. Did you know this? And it's do anything necessary to accomplish your mission purpose.
I was very interested that a few years ago, Albert had dashed out this thing. It says that it was written one night after supper in a single hour. The New York Central Railroad ordered, after they had seen this in one of Hubbard's magazines, they ordered 100,000 copies of it and distributed to their employees. And then their employees evidently kept distributing this to other people, so they ordered 500,000 copies. By that time, Andrew Carnegie and a few of the boys had stepped in, and they began to order this little pamphlet until finally there were millions and millions of these little bits, message to Garcia, distributed throughout America in this fashion. It demonstrates that there is a small amount of anxiety then on the subject of trying to find a good man to employ. In all this Cuban business, there is one man stands out on the horizon of my memory like Mars at perihelion. When war broke out between Spain and the United States, it was necessary to communicate quickly with the leader of the insurgents. Garcia was somewhere in the mountain fastnesses of Cuba. Nobody knew where. No mail or telegraph could reach him. The president must secure his cooperation quickly. What to do? Someone said to the president, "There's a fellow by the name of Rowan. We'll find Garcia for you if anybody can." Rowan was sent for and given a letter to be delivered to Garcia. How the fellow named Rowan took the letter, sealed it up in an oilskin pouch, strapped it over his heart, in 4 days landed by night off the coast of Cuba from an open boat, disappeared into the jungle, and in 3 weeks came out on the other side of the island, having traversed the hostile country on foot, and delivered his message to Garcia, are things I have no special desire now to tell you in detail. The point that I wish to make is this. McKinley gave Rowan a letter to be delivered to Garcia. Rowan took the letter and did not ask, "Where is he at?" By the eternal, there is a man whose form should be cast in deathless bronze, and the statue placed in every college of the land. It is not book learning young men need, but a stiffening of the vertebrae which will cause them to be loyal to a trust, to act promptly, concentrate their energies, do a thing, carry a message to Garcia. General Garcia's dead now, but there are other Garcias. No man who has endeavored to carry out an enterprise where many hands are needed but has been well nigh appalled at times by the imbecility of the average man, the inability or unwillingness to concentrate on a thing and do it. Slipshod assistance, foolish inattention, dowdy indifference, and half-hearted work seem the rule. And no man succeeds unless by hook or crook or threat he forces or bribes other men to assist him, or mayhap God in his goodness performs a miracle and sends him an angel of light for an assistant. You, reader, put this matter to a test. You are sitting now in your office. 6 clerks are within easy call. Summon anyone and make this request. Please look up in the encyclopedia and make a brief memorandum for me concerning the life of Correggio. Will the clerk quietly say, yes, sir, and go do the task? On your life, he will not. He will look at you out of a fishy eye and ask one or more of the following questions. Who was he? Which encyclopedia? Where is the encyclopedia? Was I hired for that? Don't you mean Bismarck? What's the matter with Charlie doing it? Is he dead? Is there any hurry? Shan't I bring you the book and let you look it up for yourself? What do you want me to know for? And I will lay you 10 to 1 that after you have answered the questions and explain how to find the information and why you want it, the clerk will go off and get one of the other clerks to help you try to find Garcia, and then come back and tell you there is no such man. Of course, I may lose my bet, but according to the law of average, I will not. Now, if you are wise, you will not bother to explain to your assistant that Correggio is indexed under the C's, not under the K's. But you will smile sweetly and say, never mind, and go look it up for yourself. And this incapacity for independent action, this moral stupidity, this infirmity of the will, this unwillingness to cheerfully catch hold and lift, these are the things that put pure socialism so far into the future. If men will not act for themselves, what will they do when the benefit of their effort is for all? A first mate with knotted club seems necessary, and the dread of getting the bounce Saturday night holds many a worker to his place. Advertise for a stenographer, 9 out of 10 who apply can neither spell nor punctuate and do not think it necessary to. Can such a one carry a message to Garcia? You see that bookkeeper, said the foreman to me in a large factory? Yes, what about him? Well, he's a fine accountant, but if I'd send him up to town on an errand, he might accomplish the errand all right, and on the other hand, might stop at 4 saloons on the way, and when he got to Main Street would forget what he'd been sent for. Can such a man be entrusted to carry a message to Garcia? We have recently been hearing such maudlin sympathy expressed for the downtrodden denizens of the sweatshop and the homeless wanderer searching for honest employment. And with it all, often go hard words for the men in power. Nothing is said about the employer who grows old before his time in a vain attempt to get frowsy ne'er-do-wells to do intelligent work, and his long, patient striving after health that does nothing but loaf when his back is turned. He was bitter. Matter of fact, he'd been running Roycroft for some time, a whole town of people. In every store and factory, there's a constant weeding out process going on. The employer is constantly sending away help that have shown their incapacity to further the interest of the business, and others are being taken on. No matter how good times are, this sorting continues. Only if times are hard and work is scarce, the sorting is done finer. But out and forever, out, the incompetent and unworthy go. It is the survival of the fittest. Self-interest prompts every employee to keep the best, those who can carry a message to Garcia.